Well, welcome. Thanks for coming on to our podcast, Vadge.
Thanks for having me.
Yes, thanks for doing this.
Definitely.
I think Sarah told me you put out an album, right? Or are you putting it one out?
Yes, it came out August 14th. Calise Hawkins is 40 AF. I pushed myself into doing this for my 40th birthday.
That's great. I think, was this your first album?
Yes.
Yeah, mine too. And now I regret not doing it in the past.
Exactly. I mean, it does, for me, I have the regrets. And then I also have the thing where I go, oh, it feels about right too.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I regret that I was scared to do it in the past. I wish wasn't as intimidated by it, but I kind of think maybe this is good timing for me.
No, I agree. I felt like, I don't know, you realize that you can edit out some of the parts that you didn't like if you wanted to. So there's more control to it than you think there is. But I think recording anything, even like a 5-minute set for even like try to do a late night, is stressful.
Oh yeah. It's stressful for me to do the whole, I tried to do an hour. I ended up being like 5 minutes and then edited down to like 48 minutes. It was stressful to remember the order since I don't like do long sets anywhere.
Yeah.
Like, what comes next?
Yeah, but the nice thing is you can just have it. Like I had a set list when I tape mine, and I was just like, oh, no one's going to see me looking at this. Do you know what I mean? So you could just edit that out.
Definitely brought my notes up. I
Yeah,
definitely did.
me too. Because you're like, oh, what comes next?
I walked into the show thinking I was going to remember it, and I had the notes just in case, but that didn't turn out that
What was your process leading up to it? Were you able to do like run long sets, like a week at the creek, or
I did
feature spots?
I did, but I wasn't getting a good turnout. So
Same.
I ended up only having I ended up performing for the feature. Like I just was ranting to myself, but it still helped. Helped feeling the rhythm somewhat. But then I bailed on whatever I was doing and I just reordered it the day of.
Yeah.
That's ballsy.
I use my notes.
Why did
It's still ballsy though to just be like, I'm going to change this last minute. Because in my head, it takes me a while to memorize stuff.
I was trying to memorize it in an order that made sense for an hour. You know what I mean? But then the day before, I had the best 15-minute set of my life. And it was like my newest set. I was like, and I threw out the hour and I said, I'm starting with my newest set. And then I'll work around the fact that felt good. So that at least I know I'm starting strong.
That's smart.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it is, everyone's always like, I did a few podcasts and they're like, what determined your order? And you're like, I don't know. You just do it how you feel like doing it.
Yeah.
I think for me, my order always has to be like jokes that are likable until I go into jokes that are not likable. So for me, a set order is very important. Just because, but yeah, I could see like if you're not really doing jokes that could offend people, then I could see it just doing all your jokes. It doesn't really matter. I was just like a quick opener, like a one-liner or something, just to kind of grab the attention of the crowd. That's kind of like my thing. But if you do stories and stuff, it's a little bit harder to do that.
Yeah, I need to do more stories. It stretches it out a little bit. Like I took a storytelling class, and like I don't know, what is it? The level. What am I trying to say? It changes the level of difficulty when you're telling a story. It's so much easier to get the laugh because they're so engaged with the storyline, and it's not just the math and the puzzle of how a joke comes out and how you're trying to express one sentiment. They're into the storyline, and then all of a sudden you change something up or you say something funny that's going on in the story, and they're laughing so hard. I was like, what?
If you're doing a story they're not into, it's like a long 5 minutes.
Oh my God.
That's the other thing too, where you're like, if it's not doing well, like I was practicing a story for something, and it's just like, if they're not into it and you're so committed to this story, it's hard to just be like, well, I'm not going to finish that. It's just easier to bail on a joke than like a story where you're in the middle and they're clearly not into it.
And so I see like they might not think it's funny, but they still want to hear the ending.
Yeah, I guess that's true. I guess
angrily.
For me, yeah. doing short jokes, it makes me feel uncomfortable doing stories because I'm used to getting a laugh every so often. You know, so like if you're doing a story and building it up, it makes me feel really uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
Also, I never know how to end a story. I'm always like, well, so that's what that happened.
What
Jazz
else
hands.
Yeah.
So what else? It's so
Yeah,
the most awkward feeling.
You're like, so wasn't my
What's
mom's
going on with you
murder
guys?
nuts?
This is my mom's murder nuts. Told you guys.
Yeah, but I would like to do stories because I feel like you could have 4 or 5 stories and it's like 45 minutes. That is the appealing part to me, where it could take up so much time of your act. But if you're doing shorter jokes, it does take a long time to build that up.
Oh yeah, like I'll write my set list out and I'm like, it has 60, like I number it and I'm like, there's 60 jokes on here. How the fuck am I supposed to memorize all this? Where like if you had 4 stories, your set list would just be 4 things and it would be easier to remember it.
I think that's why people move towards stories after they've done their like hard-hitting joke set. They go, I'm just going to tell a story. It's just going to be a lot easier.
Yeah, that's what I felt about with Anthony Jeselnik's last, because he had a bunch of one-liners, and then the second half of his show was more about a story.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that
makes sense,
interesting.
It's just like, you're like, I need an extra 10 minutes. You're like, I'm going to tell 2 stories.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'd be so much easier. Are you doing sets right now? Have you ventured out yet?
I have, but not much. Like I've done 2 outdoor sets and maybe 3 Zooms. I thought the Zooms were going to be nice, like as I did one really fun one and it was like, oh, they're laughing and this is like an open mic and I'm getting new jokes out. Then I did the very next one. There was like a creepy guy who was in the dark on his bed laying backwards and you could see him slowly going down his body and then his camera went out. And I was like, I think that the Zooms are more intimate than like live personal shows because people, you don't know where their hands are. You don't know who this is.
Yeah, you're in their living room. It's weird.
Some people turn off their videos and you're just like,
what are you doing?
What's going on there? Yeah. It's
you
very
have to just hope for
weird.
the best.
And then, you know, like right now where we're doing the Zoom and my face is right here. Yeah. I'm not used to looking at myself while I'm trying to express myself. It's like, the only time I do that is when I'm drunk in a bar and I have to go to the bathroom, give myself a pep talk. That's how the Zooms feel. I'm like, no, you're doing good. You're funny. Like I'm just watching myself perform for myself. That's very hilarious. Awkward.
It is very awkward. That's the thing. I hate that part too, because then I just find myself looking at myself rather than other people, but I try to take it off speaker view when I'm doing it. So I just see the other people in their apartments. But yeah, it's definitely weird. And then you feel like, oh, I think I have a set, and then you do it in public and you're like, I have nothing.
No. All you have is being this close to people's face and their laptops and they're just like, hi.
I did a Zoom show and I think
at everybody's table. It's really gross. It's like dating. It feels like a Skype date. It's gross.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, at least when you're doing stand up in a club, it's dark. You know, so you can maybe only see the front row. But in a Zoom show, you can see
Yeah.
That's true. But yeah, in a Zoom show, if you're like depending on how you have your camera set up, you could see like everybody not laughing. Like I would just rather I'd just rather pretend that you guys are engaged in something else, like in a club setting. But it's weird because the timing for Zoom, I did a couple Zoom shows, and the one that I did, I think I would do like 5 to 8 minutes. And I kind of just ran through my jokes and I was like, is that enough time? I have no idea anymore how much time really is because people you're not really hearing the audience laugh. Do you know what I mean? So you're just kind of saying jokes like you would say in front of a mirror almost, where there's not really a lot of reaction.
Yeah, it's maddening. Really. Yeah. I've reconsidered this whole career. I've psychoanalyzed how I got into this position. During this last 5-6 months, I've been like, I'm too smart to be doing this.
You've been really successful. You've written on a bunch of shows. Do you know what I mean? So like, this is just a bad patch right now for a lot of people. But you've been really successful and you're really funny. So I think all of us right now are like, this sucks. There's no security in this. You know, I think it's more of that than like if we were, you know, accountants who could still work.
Right.
Yeah.
There's no pension. There's no
pension.
When I get old.
You just have to be rich or die. That's it. Like you have to be like Bill Burr or just die at 50.
Yeah, maybe we should develop huge drug problems so we burn out before we get poor.
I don't even think I have money for drugs.
That's true. Yeah, we'll have to figure out like a cheap drug source to do. But I know what you mean, because like Adrian and I talk about this all the time, and now with pandemic, I'll say I don't want to do shows where I don't find it financially responsible. So if I'm going to do a show and then I'm getting back late, or like I have to pay for a cab ride, then I won't do it, because I'm like, there's no point.
Yeah.
Unless it's for love of the game.
And why would we love this game right now? Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's hard to love it right now when you don't feel like you're building towards a show. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
yes.
You go and you hustle a joke, you hustle a set, you want to do your new 10 minutes or whatever, because maybe next month you have an important thing that maybe like matters to you. But now
an audition or something, yeah.
It's just throwing it into a black hole of, I do comedy, so does everybody. Like,
yeah. Well, and then there's a lot of stuff too, like now I find it more effective to just tell jokes from my couch onto TikTok and Instagram, where just take the variety list. Most of those people weren't real, like there were just like a few that did stand up on a regular basis or maybe did the road, but most of them were comics that work online.
Really?
Like, and got specials like Sarah Cooper.
Oh,
like,
right.
Yeah. So then you feel like, why am I traveling all the way to Brooklyn to do 10 minutes when I could build a fan base online and then maybe do stuff a little bit closer to home,
But
or, not go on the road. Yeah.
That's the way we should have been thinking about this for maybe like the last 10 years.
Yeah.
You're saying we wasted the last 10 years.
Not wasted.
I'm kidding.
I know, but like
somewhat wasted.
The idea of YouTube, the idea of Instagram, the idea of Facebook, we could have been investing in our own personal shows. That's kind of how you get hired for stuff. If you put something out there and then somebody's interested in you, then they're really just not risking their jobs hiring you if they see that you can already do it. And then if you don't deliver the job, they go, but I have proof that this person did this thing. I'm not wrong about them. But if they hire somebody who doesn't even have videos up or any of their writing up, like you guys tweet a lot, so you can prove that you can write,
Yeah.
I think we are still doing some of that, and people are just like, no, thank you. Like, I think it's more that we're out there and they're like, no, thank you. We're going to look for something else.
Well, that's like, oh, sorry, Calise.
Sarah doing the TikToks though. Like, I've never crossed into that realm. I'm afraid of, you know what it is? I'll bomb at a show and I'll go home and I'll be proud of myself. But I don't like to bomb and it's on the internet and I don't know it's a bomb and it's just out there and everybody's like, this is a bomb.
And there's proof of it.
And I'm not aware of it.
That happens sometimes with jokes and stuff. You tweet something out and it gets one like and you're like, I have to just delete this. This is hurting my self-esteem.
I delete them all the time. I'll delete TikToks that I'm like, whoa, that ate it.
You're like, no one's into this.
How can you tell on a TikTok like whether or not people engage?
Yes, they engage or they share it, or it's weird. And I'll sometimes if it does well on TikTok, I'm like, I'll just put it on Instagram, and I feel kind of dirty for doing it. But I have to say, I get more follows from that than anything else. Than even like writing a sketch and putting it online. If I just deliver a simple joke from my couch, you get more follows
on TikTok
through that content than you do with like retweeting something. You got to try it. I'm telling everybody to do it.
I'm not on it.
You know, well, you got Instagram. You could deliver, tell a story or something.
I don't know if I can take not being successful on another platform though. Like I'm already on Twitter and Instagram. Just feels like enough.
I feel like people would like it.
Maybe.
Yeah.
I'll try. I was just thinking Trump was going to shut it down, and then I was happy that I never got into it.
Yeah. Well, There was something refreshing about having stand-up shut down, and then like when you start doing shows, everyone's like, how do you want to be brought up? And I'm like, I like to pretend that no one has credits anymore and we're all starting from scratch again.
It's kind of what it feels like.
I did, the parking lot show, I did Rebecca's show in LIC, and
yeah,
it felt like real comedy again. Like it felt like it did feel like the beginning of comedy, like the authenticity of getting into it. It wasn't just about, I'm on this lineup on this show, I'm privileged, I've been doing it, like people respect me. It was just like, oh no, I'm here in front of people who want to see comedy and I'm being funny for them.
That's a great feeling.
Like genuine relationship.
Yeah, you were like in the moment for it rather than I think some people were saying that they've been enjoying stand-up now more than they were a little bit beforehand. And the only thing that I speculated or had a theory about is that I think a lot of us we knew our jokes, and then you would just show up 5 minutes before you had to be on stage and you didn't even have to think about it. And sometimes I would just say my set without even realizing where I was. Like I wasn't really living in the moment. And now I feel like I am a little bit, just because you're trying to like memorize and think about stuff to do now rather than like the same jokes that you've been doing for months.
Well, and that's the thing, because we were in clubs and we were getting paid for it. And so you go on autopilot for the product that they've hired you for. But now I'm in a parking lot. They go, if they tip us enough, we'll pay you. And I go, then this is what the fuck I'm talking about. If you tip me enough, you're going to pay me. Okay, here we go.
I'm going to do what I want.
Like, there's no such low stakes where you're like, well, you're not paying me.
Yeah. You don't feel as intimidated. Like you're not letting anybody down, because it's like, and you know what? Everybody used to say be as bold as that before, but you can't take these risks before, because if you fail, they just get rid of you.
Yeah, they do.
Like if you do that on a Friday or Saturday night, they're like, well, we'll bump you back to Tuesday.
Yeah. Now there is no day. We don't know what day it is anymore.
That is true. That's a good point.
No, that feels good.
Time.
One of my favorite jokes of yours is the one where you said somebody was calling your daughter and they weren't saying her name right.
Oh yeah, Asha. Oh yeah.
And then you have to scream her name. Yeah, I thought that was really funny. I used to always like that joke a lot.
Well, like a lot of my jokes aren't written. It's just something happened. I wrote it down. It was funny to me when it happened. And that's why you guys are really good tweeters, because you're really able to craft a joke. Sometimes I'll be able to really craft my jokes on stage, but I'm not as good at delivering a well-crafted joke as I am delivering a feeling, delivering like, oh, here's the vibe that was going on, and here's like the reaction, delivering the moment versus like
I think you do in a way though.
I think so. I think you write your jokes, you're just not realizing it.
You have insight that's different than other people, and that's what I would consider the joke.
Well, that's what I would say, like the insight of it instead of the like writtenness of it. You know what I mean? Like I feel
people like that.
Right. Yeah. Thank goodness.
Did you tape your? Oh, sorry.
Oh no, Adrienne, you go.
You go. I'll ask her after.
I was gonna say that, like, if I don't know, some people, like, you do a set that has like a well-written joke in Brooklyn, and for some reason they don't respond to it as well as if you were just like, this is something that happened to me today, and it was, for some reason, I feel like people like those. A lot of people like those in the moment bits rather than something that feels very calculated.
Yeah,
I think that's because they feel like, they're experiencing it for the first time. They're privileged to that. Whereas, like, if you're like, oh, this happened to me on my way to the show, everyone's like, it did not. It's so weird. I was going to ask you, did you tape your album before the pandemic?
February 28th, right? Like what, a month before?
Yeah. A lot of people did it right before. Sarah did it, I think, March, right?
Yeah, I did mine the week before we shut down. And there were people there was a few people that were like, I can't come because of the pandemic. And Adrienne, I remember talking about it being kind of like mad that I was like, why would you put that on my Facebook wall? And now in hindsight, we were like, that was probably the smartest move, because we should have shut down 2 weeks before we did shut down.
Nobody really knew what to expect, though. I thought it was kind of just going to be like Ebola, where a couple people got it and it wasn't like a shutdown.
Yeah, this is crazy. Somebody told me they had they must have had it at my show because they have antibodies now. I'm like, oh,
That's good.
I hope I've had it. I feel like in February, early February, I remember somebody invited me to a birthday party and I was dead, and it was the weirdest sickness. And I was like, I have never been sick like this before. Because usually when I'm sick, there's a, whatever. There's a certain way I'm sick, and I was just like, this is killing me. And then Scott got sick. Asha didn't get sick. I mean, it's just like the new sis. Like the kids.
Yeah.
Check and see if you have the antibodies for it.
I'm a little nervous. Like, so I come from a background of conspiracy theorists. So I'm nervous to just go even get tested, because I think I'm a little bit of a hypochondriac. Like, I'm like, well, so what if the person you tested right before me had it and now I have it because you weren't clean enough in between us? Like, I'm so nervous about being around it and being in line with it.
Well, my thing is this is out of sheer laziness. I don't want to walk a mile and then stand in line. And I was saying that I wish there was a way they could test, like, there, the guy that walks through Central Park offering you drinks, or the churro lady. There should just be people around New York City being like, COVID testing.
We'll probably
and get
there.
it done right there. Like, that would be so ideal, where you're like, oh yeah, sure, I'd love to let's just do it, get it out of the way. But I don't
like drive-through testing they used to have, but I don't know if that was just in the beginning of the pandemic or not.
And where was
might be able to just go through a drive-through and get swabbed.
That would be nice. I think that was in other states though, right? That wasn't here.
Maybe in Long Island was the only place that I knew that they were doing, or out of the city, but definitely not in the city.
I wish they would send us all home kits.
Yes, like 23andMe.
Yeah.
That would be
a pregnancy test.
They're still so inaccurate though. I wonder, like, if you took it and they said that you had antibodies and then you went out thinking you did and then you got sick. So I don't know. I don't trust a lot of it either. So when you said conspiracy theories, I was kind of like, I'm on board with that.
Yeah, it's really hard to know what to believe right now, because they don't have it all figured out, and you can't just trust anything. They've gone back and forth on everything. So you just go, it's hard not to be a little bit into conspiracies right now, because we're all trying to figure out the whole overall picture at the same time.
It doesn't make sense. Well, like, we'll hear, like, Joe today told me, he was like, oh, did you see the New York Times article saying that it's pointless to get an antibody test because it doesn't really tell you much about it, that it doesn't mean anything if you have the antibodies. And then you hear prior to that, like, now it's saying that maybe we're at herd immunity, but then some people are very skeptical of that. And then remember in the beginning, they were like, don't wear masks. And now they were like, do wear masks. And that's why everything's going down, is because we are wearing masks. So I just feel like even at this level, on a day-to-day business, we get conflicting news stories.
Yeah.
Well, New York's still doing relatively well though, especially from where we started off. We were doing the worst. So I feel like what we're doing seems to be working, although we don't have anything really open. Like, in terms of arts.
Have you been out and about much?
I went out last night. I was in Midtown and it was busy. Like, people are sitting outside. Yeah.
So busy.
They're sitting outside and they're sitting close. So in my mind, I'm like, and their masks are off. So if you're sitting close to a group of people, I still feel like you can get exposed, but nothing's spiking. So then you're just like, it sounds like everything is happening from being exposed to it inside.
And so, yeah, that's what I meant. Like, not a lot of stuff is open, and like no indoor dining. A lot of the arts are closed. Although I think they said they were going to reopen bowling alleys, which is such a weird thing to go and reopen. But
thank you.
I don't know.
Movie theaters. I just saw on Twitter they're going to reopen movie theaters. That was like my first tweet in forever. I was like, okay, teenagers who can't even get the popcorn kernels out of our seat are going to clean up invisible COVID for us. How?
Yeah, I wouldn't do that. That seems like a trap.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's all it's weird. I mean, I've been doing stuff, but it's like socially distant stuff. Like, I went to the Kensico Dam, which was really dumb. I thought it was going to be, I don't know why I thought it was going to be so fun, but like, I went there and it's just like this dam that you climb up 200 stairs, you walk across it, and then you walk down. That was like the whole thing. I thought that was going to be fun. And I've actually reconnected with a lot of friends I was never really able to see that have like real lives.
Yes, I've done that too.
Yeah,
high school friends, right?
Yeah.
Not high school, but someone that I worked with when I was like 18 to 20.
Wow.
So yeah, like she has like, it's so crazy too, because she lives about an hour away, but she has a huge house. It's so crazy going there. She has a huge house on a huge piece of property. She has like one neighbor, and you're like, this is nuts. And then I drive back to the Bronx. It's like everyone's so on top of each other. Yeah. Like that's how we should all be living. Like just in a house, like with a backyard.
I've been on Zillow fantasizing about all of these.
I do that all the time. I have no money, and I'm criticizing houses that are like $1 million. I'm like, it doesn't have a pool.
But some of these nice places, their mortgage is cheaper than my rent, and I only have a bedroom.
That's probably very true. Yeah, you just need that down payment. I think that's what it is.
I was Chris Allen, the comic in the Virginia area. He showed us his house, and he was like, "This is." I think it was his mortgage payment was $1,300, and it was in the country, and it was double story, like 2-story. It was really cute. And you're just like, that is way cheaper than my rent right now. That is so insane.
We're just like, it's so crazy to just live like that, where there's like, where her house was, I was like, is this also your property? She was like, yeah. And I was like, you could, and then instantly I was like a New Yorker where I was like, you could put like a 30-story building here. Like I was just like, this is unused land that like some landscaper or like building developer would be like, can I build a huge building on your property? I was like, it's so crazy because here it's like every inch is accounted for.
Yeah. Like you could open up a farmer's market on the weekend. What are you doing?
You could do like, you could open up a bed and breakfast. She even had like a little shack where she was keeping just like stuff, I guess, for the kids. And I was like, that's probably bigger than my apartment. And then you're like, what are we doing?
Proximity to our dreams. It's like, well, you don't even need that anymore because you could be a whole comedian on the internet.
Yeah,
you can be.
And they'll give you a special. Isn't that crazy? They'll give you a special, and they've never seen you do stand-up. That's so insane to me. Like this whole time, I'm like, what? As you said, we should have been doing this 10 years ago.
Yeah.
I'm not even upset about it. I'm just like, well, it kind of makes me feel like, well, then any one of us can make this happen if that's what we can do.
Yeah. Your at-home film festival, I think it's very charming, and I think something big is going to come out of it. I'll be honest with you. That's how it starts. You do something out of the joy and the silliness and the quirkiness of your heart, and then people start to catch on and go, wow, that's actually very impressive. Like, you know what I mean? Like you get so many more people involved than just comedians. There are so many more people who make film and make it kind of cool. But yeah, you
just need one. There. You need one person with money to love your idea.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I gotta get that sugar daddy. Someone to bankroll it. But yeah, no, I know what you mean. Well, I like it because I don't think I'm good at it, and so I do it because I like it. And then I'm like, I'll get better through the process. So I don't have this like weird bitterness with it. And so it's just like this fun, enjoyable thing. And then I feel like because you have to have people help you, then it's like this fun community thing of doing it, where sometimes with stand-up, it feels like we get pitted against each other in a weird way. And then you're like, I like telling jokes, but like, do I need to do this on stage or feel bad about because some booker won't book me when I can do it on my own? And I feel that way with like making the short films. I don't need a booker.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I love
about a lot of newer comics. They go off on their own, and they're not bitter. They're not as competitive. They're just coming up in a different time when there wasn't just one female on the lineup per weekend.
Yeah.
Right.
I know, it's still like that. I'm still seeing shows where I'm like, why is there almost no females? Like, I understand sometimes, like, I've gone to shows and they're like, oh, such and such called out and they can't make it. And that's probably because they're the only one that's getting used. So they got asked to do a better gig or something like that. Mm-hmm. But I'm still like, I know a lot of females that could still take that person's spot.
Yeah. You know what? It's like this little finicky thing where not only you have to be funny, but you have to have a good relation. You have to have like, be likable to the booker. The booker has to like, they don't have to like some of the guys they put on there. They just put them on because their credits are there and they're funny and they're good for their crowd. But sometimes with the girls, it's like, but you know, one time it was like, she looked at me a certain way and I was like, I don't have a good vibe. There's like so many more rules to getting booked as a girl.
And you're like, what vibe was that? Like also too, I think a lot of us are in our own heads. So sometimes if we come off weird to other people, it has nothing to, we're just in our own heads. Do you know what I mean? Like,
but when,
I think people,
when we come off weird to them, it's like evil. But when
I
they
know,
come weird to them, it's like they're on the spectrum.
Right. But we're bitches.
Yeah.
They're just a creative artist type. But yeah, I do have that sentiment. I was was reading this book by Robert Rodriguez that did El Mariachi, and he was like, I have to see who the female actress is because she might not be able to act. And I was like, what a weird statement to say. He didn't say that for any of the guy actors that he got for his first film to do. And you're like, that would have been the same. You would have had the same issue with the guy actors, but for some reason it was an issue with the female actor.
Well, he probably just thought, you know, male actors are better.
Yeah.
And he'd be like, well, I trust their, you know, their artistry or
their
I trust
instinct.
their talent. Yeah.
Yeah.
That is a weird thing to say.
There's something about the way they scout men over women. Like I'm saying, like, I mean, I'm not going to say this about every single show, but I've definitely seen shows where the woman isn't as funny as the men because there's something about that girl that is comfortable with the booker. Do you know what I mean? It's not about, is she funny? Is she really strong? It's about maybe, you know, she hangs out at the bar, or she's pleasant, or she's nice, or she's sucking up. I'm not saying that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, we're not just thought of as talent. We're thought of as, oh, did you disrespect me? Or, you know, I've already said that, but I really feel like, I remember I've watched shows from back in the day, and you go, the woman comes on, you go, oh wow, she's horrible. So they didn't pick her based on the same skill set. They didn't pick her based on skills. They picked her based on either she looked a certain way, or, you know, maybe there was a fucking Weinstein moment. And I'm not saying women are trying to do that. I think that people put them in a position. And
it's also
then,
like
a
better social media following too. Like they do well on social media.
Of my career.
Okay.
And I know, like, I was definitely on shows I shouldn't have been on, but it was because since I was new and wide-eyed and easily abused, you know what I mean? Like, it's you like,
put her wherever.
To have her. Yeah, she's not intimidating me, and she's not hurting me, and she can just be here. Versus, like, maybe there was somebody who was stronger and more talented, but they didn't really want them around.
Yeah,
they'll deal with male angst. They'll deal with males, like, stressful, like, difficult personalities, but they won't deal with female difficult anything.
No, that is true. Nobody wants to deal with a difficult woman.
Well, didn't you have a weird experience at some club in Montreal where that guy, you were on the phone texting. He came in to talk to you, and then he was mad that you didn't look up from your phone, even though you were on the phone first.
So I went to, So I did this club in Montreal, and they've always been nice to me. And I came in, and the guy introduced me to, like, his family and stuff. I think he's like part owner in the place, but his whole family was in the green room. So he introduced me to all of them, and I was upset at the time. I forget what was happening. So he leaves and he comes back, and, like, I'm in my phone, and you could tell I'm upset. And he's talking to me while I'm on the phone doing something. And I said to him something like, hey, I'm sorry. I'm in the middle of doing something. And he went nuts on me. I forget what he said, but he was, like, very angry towards me, and he was mad. And I was like, wow, I wonder if that was a guy, if he would have done that same thing.
Was he a booker?
Like, he's like a part owner in the place. But it was just such a weird thing where I was on my phone and I told him, hey, I'm sorry, I can't really, like, do that because I'm, like, involved in doing something. And he went, like, nuts on me.
Yeah. All these guys are part incel. They all have a little bit of incel inside of them.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that situation until you reminded me. I do wonder if I was a guy and that was the same thing, if he would have had that same reaction.
That's the thing that sucks, is that we suspect it, but there's no way of really pinpointing it. Because if you addressed it, then I feel like it then falls back on us as like we're being crazy, or
there's a hostility level from men sometimes that they don't show to each other. I've worked in groups with them before, and all they're doing the whole time is trying to make them all feel comfortable. They're laughing harder at something that's not funny. They're going da 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 da. They're all like looking around, like making sure, hey, we're all looking at each other. Nobody's about to stab me in my back, and they're all trying to make each other calm. But as soon as you get involved, it's somehow a different ball game. It's somehow, if you've corrected them, or if you're causing the disrespect that they're all trying not to cause with each other. I don't know how to explain it, but they're working really hard to be buddy and not fight with each other. But when you step up, they're just like, what?
yeah.
Like, you come in, and I mean, this happens with my kid and whoever I'm dating, right? So like, when I talk to my kid and I tell her to do something, she's like, fine. When one of them says, hey, you need to go in the other room or whatever, she's like, excuse the fuck out of me? I don't respect that. That's how men are in the fucking room. They're just like, who are you? What are you, dating my mom? That's how they treat women. Are you dating my dad? Why are you talking to me?
Yeah.
That's a hilarious analogy, but it's also probably pretty accurate.
Well, I remember one time I was with a group of guy comics, and then I was adding on to their story where I was like, oh yeah. And then I happened to mention it was Adam Devine's TV or house or whatever, house party, whatever show it was. And I don't even think that's that great of a credit. It's cool, but it's not anything like, and then the guy was like, he shamed me for dropping the credit, even though it was pertinent to the story. And I was like, what the fuck is that? Like, you wouldn't do that. And then I would be like, that's not even a credit. That's only a credit if you're bitter. Like, if you were doing well, you wouldn't even think that that was a crazy thing to drop in the conversation, especially that it had something to do with the story.
Also, knowing you're not bragging about doing stuff. That's like a weird thing to just feel like, I can't believe
he did it to me twice in 2 different conversations, that it was so, where I was like, you wouldn't do this to a dude or one of your guy friends. Yeah.
I've had to correct a lot of my behavior too. I think that we were conditioned. Like once I found out what gaslighting was, and once I found out like just everything's topsy-turvy, everything's backwards, everything I was afraid that somebody was treating me was just true. Oh, you've been gaslighting me. You've been treating me like shit, and I didn't know it. I've had to update like how I view women. I have, and I don't even think I'm the worst, but I've still had to. But like in conversation, like I don't want to put him out there like this, but and it's not even a vicious thing. But there's sometimes with even Scott where I've had to be like he's telling me a story about this crazy thing a girl did, and I'm like, no, and I'll just pick a friend of his out of the hat. Remember when remember when such and such did something like that? He wasn't crazy and throw him away and don't talk to him anymore, was he? So you hold, men and women at a different standard in comedy about what's crazy, but we're talented and we're doing this because there's something a little like antisocial about us or different about us. So we all have our different levels of crazy, but when a woman steps into comedy and has a certain level of crazy, it's like scary for men. It's like, you gotta get away from her. You never know what she's gonna do, when that's never been the case. Whenever you heard like of some assault from some female comedian because she lost it and she hurt somebody versus the other way around. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I don't hear women
scared. They're so scared of us. Watch out. She's crazy. Look at her eyes.
Although I feel like I'd rather physical abuse than mental abuse at this point.
From just anybody.
Just someone in general. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, because at least you know that it's abuse. Because sometimes with the mental, you're like, sometimes I don't even register that it was fucked up until 30 minutes I'm on the train, and I was like, why did that make me feel weird? What was it? And then I'm like, oh, I know why. And then I pinpoint it, and I was like, I didn't have the ability to call it out at that moment. And then you're like, there's no way to be like, hey, can we go back to when we were hanging out? Like the moment has passed. So then I have to just sit with that bullshit.
Do you know, or even getting at home and I'll talk to I'll like say what I should have said. And I don't even know I'm doing it. And Sky's like, what are you? And I'm like, oh, I was what I should have said. There was a thing I should have said to that person. And I was repracticing it. Oh my God, this just happened to me. You guys go ahead. But this just happened to me. And I was just like, I should have been like.
Yeah. It's so frustrating. But now, like Adrian, like I was telling Adrian, I was watching Love on the Spectrum, and they have, what I like about the people that are on the spectrum, and what I've observed is that they don't have the ability to kind of like bullshit and not hurt people's feelings. They only have the ability to be like, this is what I'm feeling right now, and I'm saying it. And so you're like, I want to just be like that, where I'm like, I don't know what's going on, but right now I don't like how I'm feeling and I want to leave the situation. And that's how I feel like I'm going to deal with every interaction, is just pretend that I have autism.
But isn't that like an evolved spectrum-y person? If they're able to articulate that, that's like a highly functional person.
Well, yeah. That's what I was like, oh, I really love that they're really good with their boundaries, where I feel like I'm not so much. Like I'll let people do stuff more, but it's like getting better with time. But yeah, there's something about them. I've just noticed that they have the ability to express how they feel at that moment without being rude about it.
Really?
Yeah.
But I guess I'm not on the spectrum. I definitely say things that I go, I didn't realize that was going to hurt you. I didn't know that was going to bother you. But so I just said it out of my ass. And then I'm dealing with the fallout.
Yeah.
I've always wondered if I was on the spectrum, but I guess I'm not. I don't know.
I mean, the spectrum seems so big that you're like,
yeah,
I think everybody could be on it.
You could probably fall somewhere towards the end.
Yeah.
Do you think I'm on it?
No, I'm
maybe.
just saying, if you wanted to say you were on it, you could also just justify it by saying you're like right before it ends.
Yeah.
I just always look for like, why am I so awkward with people? I definitely know I have social anxiety. I definitely know that like I can't, it's so hard for me to be in groups of people and feel safe.
I think a lot of people have that though.
Yeah. Turns out it looks like most people have that. But then why are people floating around being fine?
I know. Who are those? Those
Hannibals,
are
a bunch of Hannibals.
There's some people where you're
differently.
Yeah. But then some people you're like, did you get a book? It's like, how did you know? It feels like they can maneuver through life really easily.
Yeah. I think it has something to do with upbringing when it comes to the people who are having an easy time. I really don't think that they were shit on as much. I really think they were given like better senses of self. You know? So even if they're socially anxious, they still have a sense of self to come back to when they can't get it from the outside world. Like I'm constantly looking for what's going on from how people are reacting to me. Like since this is a pleasant talk, I go, then I'm having a pleasant time. If this wasn't a pleasant talk, like I don't get to decide ever what mood I'm in. It feels like I don't ever have a sense of me. I'm really bad at that. But you know, I found out, and I'm putting everybody out there right now because I need online therapy right now. But my friend sent me like children who are the product of narcissist moms. I was like, that's what the fuck this is. She scooped out all of me and put her own little bullshit in, and I still have to like purging her out of my system, even at 40.
Yeah, I feel like that happens a lot now for our age, is that you're only realizing now what happened in your childhood is why some things are probably harder in your life. And I'm having the same thing, but I think Adrian also, I feel like you have the same mom issues.
Yes. I have the same mom.
Us do.
My mom is a huge narcissist. I remember going to therapy and telling my therapist that I really thought I had a good childhood because no one fucked me as a kid. And then he was like, Adrian, your childhood was awful. And I was like, really? He's like, yeah, nobody like paid attention to you or did anything with you. And you're like, oh, wow, I just had such a low bar for what I thought was acceptable. I mean, my
No, we're
mom
told
also does
that.
stand up. Yeah, my mom does stand up. How like narcissistic is that?
I always look at my kid and I like, can you imagine I'm having these conversations with my kid? I'm like, I'm not doing this to you, am I? Like, as soon as I read about something that reminds me of my mom, I go, Asha, you let me know if I've ever made you feel, I'm trying so hard not to.
At least you're aware of
ruin
it,
her.
though.
I try so hard. I'm so aware of it because I don't have a sense of self. I live for everybody else, honestly.
Yeah. Being responsible for other people's feelings is such a awful burden. Like when you love to be able, just because if somebody got hurt or like you can feel them like maybe not getting what they want, that you don't cater to that.
Oh
like
my
that
God,
would be a blessing.
even bad people, even if a bad person wants a bad thing and I see that they're like sad because they're not getting it, it's hard for me not to help.
Yeah.
I'm like, this is a bad thing you want. You're a bad person. I'm just like, well, maybe not tomorrow you'll get that. Like, I don't even, it's so hard. I did an ayahuasca retreat and in the sharing part, I told them how my mom made me so responsible for everybody's feelings around me that I never know how I feel. Right.
Yeah.
What's an ayahuasca retreat? Just because I don't really, is that when you take like smoke a specific type of pot or something?
It's when you drink, there's like this leaf and this vine that's mixed together. It's a tribal medicine that connects you to spirits. It's you're high, but you feel connected to reality and like,
in tuned, right?
The unseen. And it was an intense experience. I want to just cut to I was having a purge because you can either throw up, you can cry, people have all kind of different reactions. The final day that I was purging, I was giggling. I just was laughing and I was just like, and I was getting triggered by like somebody would start crying and I was like laughing and not at them. It was just the joy of them purging and getting whatever grief they had out. It felt bubbly inside of my chest, right? One of the ayahuasca witches came over to me and she put her hand on me and she goes, you are ruining everybody's experience with your reaction. She said almost verbatim what I said my mom did to me, right? And it ruined my experience. It was crazy. And it was a really big lesson for me because we had a whole thing the next day. I talked to somebody. I was like, should I bring it up? And she got like, kind of talked to about it. Like that laughter is supposed to be a beautiful purge and she shouldn't have interrupted me. It was like really rude of her. And I was like, oh, so everywhere I go, I'm going to find this person. This person's attracted to me. This person's going to try to stop me from experiencing whatever I'm experiencing because
yeah, she invalidated your emotions at that time, and which was an honest feeling.
Everybody else. And so then I took it in and I believed her, by the way. I believed her. I felt so shamed, right?
Yeah, that would make you feel really bad.
So then the next day we had another sharing circle and you should have seen there were so many people who were like, it was really weird. They had a kid running around, which was probably illegal. And it was really weird. And there was a family that was like, she wasn't bothering me at all. When she laughed, I actually was able to go further on my journey. Like they were saying that everything I was doing was conducive to their experience. And so that lady got really like, shit on.
Well, the nice thing about that though is like, that lady said that to you, but that wasn't the truth in the room, right? So it's like, even if somebody says something to you, like your mom or whoever it is, you're like, well, that's not necessarily what's going on. That might just be how you're perceiving it. So I do think it is.
Lesson.
Yeah, I do think like all those people being like, because I've also like something awful will happen and I also want to laugh just because I feel uncomfortable. Or sometimes like I'll just see in a movie like something awful and make me laugh. And maybe somebody else would perceive that as not the right way to handle it, but there are also other people that are like, oh, that's how I was feeling and I felt like I couldn't do that. So I'm sure there are other people in that circle that you comforted, that maybe they were able to go further with their journey, or like they felt like they wanted to do that but couldn't. So that lady, she was just wrong. Like that's the other thing too, like just because someone says something to you doesn't mean they're right.
Yeah. And I'm really trying in my older age to have my own perspective. It's so hard for me because I still have this fear of, I don't want to hurt anybody, but I also don't want to be rejected. So it's a dangerous position to be in where it's like, I am at your whim. And so when I finally do decide to stand up for myself, there's so much vitriol and anger coming from me because it's like a breaking point. It's not just a regular conversation of boundaries. It's, now you've done too much and now I'm going to hurt you.
Being rejected is universally uncomfortable though.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Nobody wants to be rejected. Even stand up, look, all of us pick this career where there's tons of rejection. Mm-hmm. You know, that's why when I said like I'd rather sometimes just get like hit than be emotionally abused. It's like, you ever talk to like a late night set and they're gonna have you on and then they never have you on. You're like, I'd rather you just push me. Like, I just don't want that emotional abuse that comes along with it, or like just that fucking with your feelings. But like rejection, it's so weird because nobody wants to be rejected, and we're in this business where rejection is a huge part of this business. Like there's more no's than yeses. I know. It's just weird that a lot of comics are sensitive. Like, I'm a sensitive person. I think all of us are somewhat sensitive, you know, and kind of just have to put on this hard exterior because this business will just like destroy you.
Yeah. I'm very fragile.
Well, it's like, as you said, is now I try not to have those people and like manipulate, or not manipulate, but like change my perception of myself. Like, it shouldn't matter what they think. Mm-hmm. Like, it
not
just
anymore. It's getting easier for me to see it clearly after all these movements. You know, you got the Black Lives Matter, you got the Me Too movement, and you got everything that was gaslit into me that I'm like trying to survive. I go, oh no, you're doing this to me. I'm not making it up. I'm not, you know, like I thought I'm definitely sensitive, but there are circumstances that you get put in where there's so much spite thrown your way that why wouldn't you be sensitive to it? And if you're already sensitive, you're going to pick up on it. But it's already, like, I don't know, you've been in like safer positions, right, where people are listening to you and they're reacting to you and they're responding like favorably to what you're saying, versus a situation where you go, wow, you're acting like I can't say anything right.
Yeah,
that's the gaslighting of it. And you go, that's odd.
Yeah, and then because at that moment you're like, I know I'm not super irrational. I know I've read up on different points of views and I don't feel like, so why is this person making me, it's weird. You're like, I'm allowing them to make me feel like I'm stupid or something.
Yeah. It's time to start walking away from those conversations.
Yeah.
Well,
that's why I like
like being in a pandemic where we're just inside our houses.
Mm-hmm. How do you walk away from this?
Yes. It's been absolutely perfect. Calise, where can we find your album?
Oh, I guess it's on all the streaming services now. You know, it's iTunes, Pandora, Spotify, all the places where you can listen to stuff. It's available. Calise Hawkins.
And it hit number one.
That's awesome.
Number one the
That's
day
so
of
cool.
the release.
Guys, go buy Calise's album. Super funny.
I watched the like, you know, the up and down. It got buried pretty quickly by like Gothican has like 5 or 6 out of the top 10.
Fart Noises is doing better.
What is?
There's 2 albums called like Fart Noises Part 1 and 2, and they're like in the top 20.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, that list, like, if you look through that list, it's like stuff from 1980. It's like, how are you more relevant still than anything else coming out right now?
Well,
why?
Did you notice that in the top 200 at any given time, it won't be the same females? It's usually Kathleen Madigan, but there's usually 3 albums done by women in the top 200, and then the rest are like all
fart
dudes.
Noises.
It's all fart noises.
That's like the programming, you know, like if something on the radio, comedy radio is playing a certain thing, it's all marketing. It's all advertisement. So somebody doesn't give a fuck about whether or not we appear to be comedians, because how is not even like Wanda or even Roseanne or even like, where are theirs? Where are their albums? Like,
I don't know. I think people hate listening to women. Like, I just think that's true. That's why none of these like Patreons that are like female based, none of them are doing the numbers that guys are doing. Do you know what I mean? Like, not even to say ours, but just in general, there's not really anyone that's crushing numbers of $50,000-$60,000 a month
like
from
Come
Patreon.
Town.
Right. So you're like, people just probably don't want to listen to women. That it has to be that.
Can I want to also point out, it feels like the Patreons that work the most for the men, they're appealing to like the lowest common denominator, and women, we're still trying to get our just due and our rights and our equality, that we can't come out as scum, you know, like maybe if
I'm
we
okay
all
with
came
being
out
scum
on a podcast, but like maybe, I mean, and not that they're scum, but guys we fucked did great because it's about sex, it's about who did I fuck, and like it's about sexual progression, and sex is still not an acceptable thing for women to talk about, so it does really well. So like we're trying to be uplifting, or we're trying to be like good, when the guys who are doing really well are very what's that word, polarizing.
Yeah,
I think we're pretty polarizing. I just don't think we're dudes.
That's true.
well, I mean, there is that thing they said that for the MTA announcements, that they made commands by male voices and announcements in female voices, because studies have shown people, and it's people, even we as females are programmed to listen to a man do authority and not from a woman. I think that's insane.
That. Yeah, it is insane.
I wonder who brought that up at the board
really
meeting.
Like,
stand clear of the, I mean, I guess it's true. Stand clear of the closing doors. I don't know what the woman's saying. I know what the guy says.
She's like,
next stop,
yeah,
West 4th Street. And he's like, stand clear of the closing doors.
And they're like, oh, okay.
That's interesting, because when I take the train, I can never even hear what the next stop is, because that lady's so low.
She's so soft like this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they don't even want you to be bothered with knowing, because
it's like, hey guys, sorry to interrupt your ride, but like, we're stopping soon. If you want to get off, you can. If not, and then
doors will shut.
The dude comes on. He's like, "Fucking, the doors are opening. You're gonna die." Like, oh, God.
Everyone's like, I like him. He sounds great. Yeah. She sounds like a bitch.
Yeah, everyone's like, she's a whore. That's such a weird thing to scream to a woman that you don't know, where you're like, you're a whore, and you're like, that's not even offensive. But people always think they're hurting your feelings like that.
Have you ever been on the train and the announcer's like talking accidentally on an open mic, and he's talking about some hot piece of ass walking by?
That's hilarious.
That's happened to me
that's a jewel.
Times.
I like that.
Mic is hot.
I haven't heard the train guy talk in a long time, and most of the time when you do, it's like it's all broken up where I'm like, what am I listening to? Like, I can't figure out what they're saying.
Yeah, and it's always the most important piece of information you could ever know.
About going express, and you're like, oh, you're about to get shot into another borough that you did not intend on going to.
Did you guys watch The Joker?
Yes.
Yeah.
And I laughed when he got shot at the end.
Oh my God, that train! I laughed through the whole thing, and I don't know if it's because it's nervous. I really enjoyed it. And Scott and Ash were just like, because I was having so much fun when he was killing people.
At the end where he killed, at the end, that's what it made me think of, where you're saying laughing, and that made me think of that situation. I was the only person laughing when he killed like the Jay Leno or Carson guy. I was the only one in the whole place that laughed hysterically.
Oh, I loved it. Because I was
it's very relatable.
And you didn't see that shit coming. Oh, it was lovely.
Yeah.
And
isn't that weird?
In such bad positions, but that's what they do. Like, look at some old clips of late night. I'm not going to say who, but they put people in such bad positions. Like, okay, like one late night show brought on that guy. Remember that guy who was like, with a machete or an axe? Like, he saved somebody off the road, and then he was crazy too.
No,
Smash. If you look up Smash, they had him on a talk show, like afterwards, just talking and was chumming up to him about how he just axe somebody in the back of the head. It's like, how is this hilarious?
Yeah.
How is this hilarious that this guy, and then he's like locked up ever since because he's a little off.
Yeah. But then they kind of like just like exploit him a little bit.
Yes.
For our
I don't think it
entertainment.
happen anymore. I don't think that some of the people that they had on talk shows they could do anymore. But that's exactly what that Joker moment was. You're exploiting him on here because you think he's horrible, and you're setting him up for failure. And then he murdered you. It was the funniest thing I've ever seen.
Yeah, as soon as he starts getting shot, I was like, this is hilarious. But also too, like,
but he murdered.
Yeah.
But also too, once I was laughing, everyone in the theater was judging me. So it's kind of like,
for sure.
Yeah.
And this was right after I dyed my hair rainbow. So I was like, I hope they don't think I'm trying to kill people after this. Like, I had a rainbow afro.
That's hilarious. That's so funny.
I couldn't stop laughing. I loved it so much. I've heard people afterwards say that they didn't like it because it was encouraging this and that and the other. And they were mad because he hallucinated that relationship. I was like, no, they put you in a position of going through life how he feels. He felt like he was in this really good relationship with this girl, and he felt like she was his support, and he felt like he was like possibly the brother of Bruce Wayne. Like, he really believed this stuff. And if you've never had a delusion, then of course you would enjoy this movie, because this movie's not for you. How about that?
Yeah.
Like, I've definitely had some manic days of my own where I couldn't quite put my finger on reality. I wasn't sure. I've definitely had sleepless nights that led to manic episodes. I've had that. And if you've never had, then you don't understand this man fighting back against his reality and feeling bullied all the time and going, oh my God, you guys just step over people in the street who need your help. I thought that was beautiful.
I agree. They were like, you're giving heart to incels, and you're like, yeah, well, a lot of people are struggling with mental illness. And I feel like it shines a light on it, and everybody, like, a lot of people are hurting. And I didn't understand that perception. I was like, why are you shunning like another perspective? Like, I think perception's really fascinating. Like, here's a story. This happened. So Sam Morrill tweeted out, it's nice to see that Rob Schneider got a break. And so in our minds, we all thought that Rob Schneider gets breaks in Hollywood because of his friends. And we're like, he does pretty well for a guy that doesn't seem to be like super talented, is the perception. He retweets it and he goes, thanks, Sam. It's nice to see. I've been working my butt off. So in his mind, he's like, I've only gotten stuff because of my friends. I've been doing the road for the past 10 years. And finally Netflix has given me a break. Like, in his mind, he's like, I haven't been getting the thing, he thinks he's been struggling. So it's all perception.
And then I'll tag that with, I saw a Lori Kilmartin tweet where she was like, you got the Rob Schneiders getting things, but me and my partner, my comedy partner, we've been doing this and that and podcasts and all this. And, she's like amazing. And
she wrote for Conan. Yeah. It's crazy.
It's crazy because everybody who's doing okay thinks they should be doing better, and they don't realize the privilege they have of doing okay. Or, I mean, he's not just doing okay. I would imagine like he's getting those residuals.
Yeah. Well,
he's famous.
He's famous.
Right?
Well, the other one too is like, there's people that were upset about Sarah Cooper getting, and they're about like 5 years in. And then you're like talking to people that are about 15 to 20 years in that are also struggling too. And then you're like, it's funny that the 5 to 6 person is upset that the person like a Sarah Cooper feels like she got a special overnight. And you're like, well, you're also new.
Right. But they also don't do any research. They also don't even know her.
Yeah.
She's been doing comedy for 7 years. She has a book out. She's a hustler. So like a 7-year-old comedian, white male, gets a break. People go, good for them. But a 7-year-old, like, Black woman gets a break, mixed woman, whatever you want to call her, gets a break, and they go, how? Because you know why? There's no representations of her out there. So
she's 42.
Right.
That makes you feel good.
I love that she's doing this, but people don't expect her. They're judging people's success rate off of, society. Like, since I don't see anybody wanting a woman who looks like her traditionally, then I don't understand why you got to have it and not something that I'm used to getting it, which they don't complain about.
Well, also, it's just like, none of us are doing what she's doing anyway. So it's like, to be upset that she got something based off of something none of us are doing is insane. Do you know what I mean? Like, early on in my career, I'd be jealous of certain people. And I had a friend that would be like, well, do you want their act? Do you want to do what they're doing? And I'd be like, no. And they're like, well, you can't really complain then. Do you know what I mean? Like, none of us are doing voices of Trump or, you know, how she kind of broke out. And it's like, so why are we going to be jealous of her? And I do understand people are like, well, it just seems like the business is unfair. And it's like, well, honestly, the business only cares about how many views and your audience. Yeah. Honestly, like, if one of us was to make a video and it was really, it was not like what we thought was great or something, and it blew up, people would be mad at us also. And you're like, well, you're not doing whatever I'm doing. So it's like, her getting that, honestly, I think it opens up the doors just for women in general, but also, like, it's not taking away anything from any of us. It's just like a weird thing. Because, like, sometimes I'll get jealous of stuff, and it's like, you have to just break it down. You're like, this woman's success is not taking away from my success. So why?
No.
It's just like, I don't know, just like hating. And like, I get it. I've been a newer comic and been jealous and wanted stuff. It just doesn't do anything for you. And I know that's hard to accept, but it's like, what is taking that away from, like, it's just a weird thing. And I get also people being jealous or upset, but it's like, you really think about it. What does that do for you? Right. You're just jealous or upset. It doesn't
set out to do this thing. She just was having fun on her own, and it just blew up.
Absolutely. Yeah. It doesn't take away from any of our success. Do you know what I mean? So
and
it's just
like, it shows it could give us more jobs, honestly.
Writing. Yeah. Well, the other thing too is, like, a lot of people are like, we need more women, and then there's a woman that gets it, and then they're like, oh, not that one.
Her. It's never the right one. Yeah. I mean, just like with the Batwoman, they're like, please, not her. We want an LGBTQ woman, but not that one. It's like, which one? Why do you even care?
Yeah. Wait, just be happy that there's more women doing stuff. I don't know.
Yeah, it's the same thing that's happening with Kamala. They're like, yeah, we wanted somebody, but
who did they want? They didn't want Hillary. They don't, like, tell me who's the perfect woman to anyone, because, like, it just seems like there is no perfect woman for everyone.
No.
Do you know what I mean? Like, I just don't understand who you're looking for. Like, people didn't like Hillary. They're like, we want a woman, but not Hillary. And it's like, okay, well, great. Now we have Trump. So, like, I just don't get, like, I don't know. I just think Kamala's also probably being judged a little bit harder. And also, she's probably the only one running that doesn't have any sexual assault cases. Why is she not just running for president?
She was.
Fuck Biden and Trump. I know, but I'm saying, like, just fuck Biden and Trump. Just, like, let her be the fucking winner. I don't know.
Yeah. The voters don't care about that yet. It's weird.
Yeah.
It's so weird.
Yeah. It is bonkers.
I'm voting for Kanye.
Did he manage to get on the ballot?
You could write in
kind of
whoever you want. Out? I don't think so, but you could write in whoever you want.
I'd be up for Kanye.
Here's the thing I'm trying to weigh. It's like, people go, Trump has ruined our democracy and fucked up society, right?
Yeah.
But I go, wow, I haven't seen this much focus on change and progress since before. Like, you know, like, it's caused a lot of things to start happening that weren't happening before.
It's
people also said, like, they hated Bush and Bush bought about Obama, and then they're like, you know, it kind of just keeps going back and forth, and, like, who knows who Trump will bring about for us, you know?
Definitely. It feels like an ebb and a flow. And I'm not saying that, thank God for Trump, because I'm just saying, but let's not get it twisted. Before Trump, minorities were in a very bad position, and now people are acting like they care. I'd rather hear all of these conversations now than when everybody pretended like we were fine.
Yeah. No, I agree. I mean, so he shook things up a bit for sure.
He did.
And made people focus on stuff. And I also think that's why, like, the pandemic is a really interesting thing. It's like an opportunity to really focus on things that I don't think we were really happy before the pandemic. And I think a lot of people had a realization that they're like, things need to change in my life.
Well, like we said, like I'm visiting friends I haven't seen in so many years, going to the beach and going to walk on a dumb dam. That's stuff I would have never done before. You know what I mean? Like, it just everyone has so much more time now, and it's of course it's like at the hands of this pandemic. But didn't you say you were living your best life?
Yeah. I feel like like now I like pandemic comedy. I like doing a show at 6 o'clock in a park. I like doing maybe one show a night. I also feel like in the past, was it good to do every show every night and not work on other things that made me happy? Like there were times doing the same 4 clubs each week, and I'd walk by restaurants and people would be with their friends that I would be like, I haven't done anything like that in so long. And then I'm just like miserable doing a thing that makes me miserable, where now I feel like I'll do it a few times a week and that makes me happy and it fulfills that need. But now I get to do other things that also make me happy. And I feel like that helps out on the stage part too.
But it also took a pandemic for people to want to go outside and not be inside playing video games. Like you couldn't buy a bike because people wanted to be outside on a bike and exercise. And meanwhile, before, all people were doing was inside on their phones or on their computers or whatever.
Yeah.
So it's like a weird kind of shift.
Yeah. I think great things are going to happen. That's what I think.
Yeah, I think all those shows back to back to back, it was just like over rehearsing, and we were becoming very, I felt like I was becoming very autopilot-y and very disconnected from any of the thing about comedy that gave me joy. It's just too much. Like, because you hear, oh, you got to hit the stage 3 times a night, and you attempt that, and then you're just depleted to care. And also I've noticed that so I jot down my idea that's funny, and I think I'm cycling through them more, and I'm getting more material now that I'm not stuck to what is the set tonight, what works tonight. Like I'm, it feels at the beginning. Back in the beginning, it was easier to come up with material because you had to look forward to a show and you had some time for the thought to marinate and you could talk to people about it instead of it being like, it better be ready for this show tonight because they're paying $25.
Yeah. $25 too. Like because you feel like you're getting paid $25 that you have to do the same set over and over again. When in fact you should just be like, it's fucking $25.
Oh man, I was starting to hate myself. I was like, if I have to fucking talk about this shit one more time, I swear to God, I quit. I was like, stop making me talk about this. It feels like it. But I also realize that's my problem because some people are in love with their set. They're in love with themselves. And I have to like be a little more excited about my sense of humor. But now that I've moved towards new jokes, I am getting more excited about what I have to say than the repetition of the play I was in when I was a comedian.
Yeah, that's true.
Oh, well, I feel like it's time to wrap up. This has been really fun, Calise. Where can we find you?
Oh, nowhere. No, I'm nowhere.
You're on Instagram. Twitter.
Oh, like that.
Yes.
No, give us your address so people can stand outside your house.
I mean, I'm just not doing any shows really. And even this, like doing your guys' Zoom, it's like because I've had a conversation. I've noticed that I keep canceling people who I've never had a conversation with in real life. I like this, the anxiety starts to build up and I go, I just don't even know how they're going to talk to me. And I'll just cancel.
Just try it. Just try it. You might like it.
I'll try it.
You can always end early.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like if I'm on somebody's Zoom podcast, I could just be like, I got to get going. My daughter's calling me.
Yeah, you have a kid. You always have an out.
Or you could do a hard out. You'd be like, I have to leave at like 12:30 or whatever.
Yeah.
Or if you do podcast, like I find the ones that if they're like I did one called Breaking Down the Bits, and if they already have set questions and that's the same questions week to week, I find those ones to be easier because at least they know when the conversation starts to die out, they know to ask the next question, and that makes those easier.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But the ones where they're like, we just do whatever, then I'm like, oh no, what if we don't have anything to talk about?
Yeah.
It's hard.
But yeah, Calise Hawkins on everything. Calise Hawkins, Instagram, Twitter. I don't tweet much, but I have
everybody
very corrosive opinions. I'm afraid
to
put them out there.
We love opinions.
Yeah. Everyone go buy Calise's album. Super funny and nice, and we love you. And thanks for doing this with us.
I love you guys too. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Oh, yeah. This was fun.